questions and answers from the works of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Today's subject is Divine Will, Part 3a, from the Mother. I forgot one thing. To hear it, you must be absolutely sincere. For if you are not sincere, you will begin by deceiving yourself, and you will hear nothing at all except the voice of your ego. And then you will commit with assurance, thinking that it is the real small voice, the most awful stupidities. But if you are sincere, the way is sure. It is not even a voice, not even a sensation. It is something extremely subtle, a slight indication. When everything goes well, that is, when you do nothing contrary to the divine will, you will not perhaps have any definite impression. Everything will seem to you normal. Of course, you should be eager to know whether you are acting in accordance with the divine will. That is the first point, naturally, without which you can know nothing at all. But once you are eager and you pay attention, everything seems to you normal, natural. Then all of a sudden you feel a little uneasiness somewhere in the head, in the heart, or even in the stomach. Generally, one doesn't give it a thought. You may feel it several times in the day, but you reject it without giving it any attention. But it is no longer quite the same. Then, at that moment, you must stop. No matter what you may be doing, and look, and if you are sincere, you will notice a small black spot, a tiny wicked idea, a tiny false movement, a small arbitrary decision, and that's the source of the uneasiness. You will notice then that the little black spot comes from the ego, which is full of preferences. Generally, it does what it likes. The things it likes are called good, and those it does not are called bad. This clouds your judgment. It is difficult to judge under these conditions. If you truly want to know, you must draw back a step and look, and you will know then that it is the small movement of the ego which is the cause of the uneasiness. You will see that it is a tiny thing curled back upon itself. You will have the impression of being in front of something hard which resists or is black. Then, with patience, from the height of your consciousness, you must explain to this thing its mistake, and in the end it will disappear. I do not say that you will succeed all at once the very first day, but if you try sincerely, you will always end with success. And if you persevere, you will see that all of a sudden you are relieved of a mass of meanness and ugliness and obscurity which was preventing you from flowering in the light. It is those things which make you shrivel up, prevent you from widening yourself, opening out in a light where you have the impression of being very comfortable. If you make this effort, you will see finally that you are very far from the point where you had begun. The things you did not feel, did not understand, have become clear. If you are resolved, you are sure to succeed. This is the first step towards unifying yourself, becoming a conscious being who has a central will and acts only according to this will, which will be a constant expression of the divine will. It is worth trying. It is always wrong to display powers. This does not mean that there is no use for them, but they have to be used in the same way as they came. They come by union with the divine. They must be used by the will of the divine and not for display. If you come across someone who is blind and you have the power to make him see, if it is the divine will that the man shall see, you have only to say, "Let him see," and he will see. But if you wish to make him see simply because you want to cure him, then you use the power to satisfy your personal ambition. Most often, in such cases, you not only lose your power, but you create a great disturbance in the man. Yet, in appearance, the two ways are the same, but in one case, you act because of the divine will, and in the other, for some personal motive. How are we to know, you will ask, when it is the divine will that makes us act? The divine will is not difficult to recognize. It is unmistakable. You can know it without being very far on the path. Only you must listen to its voice, the small voice that is here in the heart. Once you are accustomed to listen, if you do anything that is contrary to the divine will, you feel an uneasiness. If you persist on the wrong track, you get very much disturbed. If, however, you give some material excuse as the cause of your uneasiness and proceed on your way, you gradually lose the faculty of perception, and finally you may go on doing all kinds of wrong and feel no uneasiness. But if, when once you feel the least disturbance, you stop and ask of your inner self, "What is the cause of this?" then you do get the real answer, and the whole thing becomes quite clear. Disciple, what is the place of training or discipline in surrender? If one surrenders, can he not be without discipline? Does not discipline sometimes hamper? Mother, maybe, but a distinction must be made between a method of development or discipline and a willed action. Discipline is different. I am speaking of willed action. If you surrender, you have to give up effort, but that does not mean that you have to abandon also all willed action. On the contrary, you can hasten the realization by lending your will to the divine will. That too is surrender in another form. What is required of you is not a passive surrender in which you become like a block, but to put your will at the disposal of the divine will. Disciple. But how can one do this before the union has been effected? Mother. You have a will and you can offer that will. Take the example of becoming conscious of your nights. If you take the attitude of a passive surrender, you would say, when it is the divine will that I should become conscious, then I shall become conscious. On the other hand, if you offer your will to the divine, you begin to will. You say, I will become conscious of my nights. You have the will that it should be done. You do not sit down idle and wait. The surrender comes in when you take the attitude that says, I give my will to the divine. I intensely want to become conscious of my nights. I have not the knowledge. Let the divine will work it out for me. Your will must continue to act steadily, not in the way of choosing a particular action or demanding a particular object, but as an ardent aspiration concentrated upon the end to be achieved. This is the first step. If you are vigilant, if your attention is alert, you will certainly receive something in the form of an inspiration of what is to be done, and that you must forthwith proceed to do. Only you must remember that to surrender is to accept whatever is the result of your action, though the result may be quite different from what you expect. On the other hand, if your surrender is passive, you will do nothing and try nothing. You will simply go to sleep and wait for a miracle. Now, to know whether your will or desire is in agreement with the divine will or not, you must look and see whether you have an answer or have no answer, whether you feel supported or contradicted, not by the mind or the vital or the body, but by that something which is always there, deep in the inner being, in your heart.